Welcome to this week's live stream. Today we have a special topic. Remember, I told everybody that we would have, if you had any kind of suggestions for topics, that I would go ahead and take those suggestions. And I did take a suggestion, and we're going to talk about moving to Mexico solo, or not only just solo, but we're also going to talk about uh, even if you're not solo, we always think about later on retiring in Mexico. And a lot of times, sometimes we don't think about that we're going to get old. And what are we going to do? I know back in the United States, you have a lot of assisted living places, those types of things, and people really want to know what's available in Mexico. Um, Today I'm doing the live stream on Monday because yesterday was Easter Sunday. I hope everybody had a happy Easter. I'd like to welcome Anna, Stephanie, the Besses, Lambden. Good evening. So what I want to do is also to like I said, I always to give people time to kind of join in. Um, what's going on with me? I've been very busy. Next week, I'll probably won't have my live stream till Tuesday. I have two little mini huskies, and one of them actually has an appointment at 5:30 in the afternoon, so I won't be able to do it on Monday. Sunday, I also have an engagement. Saturday, my whole weekend is full. So I've been pretty busy. Like I said, and I've said it every week, I've been trying to get back to doing videos, but it's not working out. But I'm still staying live for you guys. And so this week, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, hey, Rick, how's it going? We're going to talk about your options and let me explain to you the question that was given to me. And we're gonna use that question to kind of go into the next thing, the actual topic. The question is pretty specific, but it also goes into the topic of how do I get long-term care in Mexico? What is the more or less how much does it cost? Are there long-term care insurance policies here in Mexico? Um, and the reason why this happened to be a question that came at a great time because my mother-in-law, like I had told everybody, had a stroke. My father-in-law's up in age, and one of the options we're looking at right now, we started to look at my wife and I and the whole family. We started looking at options of, you know what, if we can't take care of them, what kind of options do we have? And actually, we're looking at uh, a long-term care facility, but it's more an assisted living apartment type place for my in-laws in Monterrey, Mexico. And I'm going to go over that and what we found in San Miguel de Allende. Now, your prices are going to vary and everything else, but one of the things that I think is very important is that we think of those things. I never really thought about it until something happened to my mother-in-law. And so this person asked this question. This is the situation of this person. I'm not going to name any names or anything else, but the situation is this person is moving to Mexico by themselves. Many people have support families back home or support back home. If something happens, I can always go back home. I have Medicare, I have Medicaid. Some people go back to get their stuff done. But this person has no family, basically is moving away from the United States and really is coming to Mexico kind of cold and has decided to live here in Mexico. And so their question was, what happens if I have a heart attack or I get put in the hospital? How do I do things like maybe a guardian that will make decisions, medical decisions, pay my bills, all of those types of things that we don't really think about when we move to Mexico. A lot of us don't. I don't think a lot of us do think about that. Some of us are very well planned in that. I didn't really think about that. Like I said, I didn't think about it until we had something in our family. And luckily, my in laws have us uh, that live here in Mexico that can actually do something. But what happens if you don't? So, I this is a kind of weird topic because I'm going to give a little bit of kind of bad news, but at the same time, I think it's workable. Okay. Um, the bad news is that you really need a support system when you come here to Mexico, even if it's back home in your home country. You never know what's going to happen. For example, my in laws have their kids, and we were able to um, navigate for them. And so it's kind of hard when you're coming solo all by yourself. Okay. It's not that easy. And then not only that, but you're leaving all the things you knew back home. Okay. You're coming to a new country. Now, that's kind of the bad news. There's not a lot of options. But I think if you plan, I think you can make it work. Okay. I personally, I have a support system too. I also have my wife. I came with my spouse. So if something happens to her or something happens to me, we can manage. But we've discussed this, and what I think is important to do, and I think this is kind of important when moving to Mexico, period, is building your, I guess you might say, I think the new term is find your tribe, is building personal relationships here here in Mexico when you get here, whether it be personal relationships with the local community, whether it be personal relationships with other expats that can help you out. Now, I do know another thing that you may want to look into, depending is if you're getting on in age. For example, Ajijic is a very, very heavily with older people. There's a lot of people in that situation where they're alone. They move to Mexico alone. They might be on their Social Security. And what I have seen from the community in Ajijic is when somebody gets sick or whatever, they help each other out. So they've built that expat community. Now, I'm not talking, I know I'm going to get probably a bunch of people saying, no, you need to do the locals. And I always talk about integrating into the culture. That is important. But what's important is finding a support group of friends and maybe even people that may even become as close to you as family, so that if stuff like that happens, you do have somebody that can take you to the hospital, those types of things. If you come here and isolate yourself, you're going to have a lot of problems. And the thing is now here in Mexico, we have this thing called the power of attorney, just like they do it's kind of a power of attorney. It works the same as it does in the United States, but here's the difference. In Mexico, the power of attorney, which is called a carta de poder, you have to fill out a separate power of attorney for every single process. For example, we're going to sell the house, our in-laws' house, maybe in the future because we need to pay for the assisted living place. Well, they might not be well enough to actually go to the notario and sign when they close on the house. So they can do a carta de poder and send one of their children on their behalf, just like a power of attorney. It's the same thing. And that person can be their representative. Now, here's the thing. You can't just do a blanket power of attorney and just say, for everything like you can in the United States, where if I can't make a legal decision, my son will. Okay, it can't be that general. Or for example, you can do carta de poder for I'm going to send my friend to go get my license plate, right? Hey, Lobo Solo, it's great to see you back again. I might do a carta de poder to tell my friend, but my friend has that power of attorney to go get a license plate, but nothing else. Okay. So that's one of the things you need to learn about now. There are medical powers of attorney. So if you want to find somebody of confidence, once you get here, once you start, and it could be a local and it could be somebody that you trust, maybe that you have built a relationship with here in Mexico, whether it be back home, whether it be from another country. We have relationships with people from New Zealand, from Australia, from all over the world here in San Miguel de Allende. I don't just have relationships with Americans or local people. I have them with people from all over the world. And they've become close enough that I know that I can call some of these friends because we're here alone. My sons are back in Texas, or all three of them actually. They're back in Texas. So if something happens to me or something happens to both of us, we have a support system down here. I think a support system is very important to build down here for several reasons. We're talking about what happens if there's an emergency. I need a support system, right? But I think the support system also helps. I see so many people returning back home because of the frustration, because of the change, because they can't, because of all of that stuff. Okay. So what may happen is that what you may need a support system to help you get around, do things, share their experiences, make you feel more comfortable. Maybe not as frustrated when you're here in Mexico because it doesn't work like it works back home. I think the biggest frustration we get into, and I see this in expat groups, is everybody expects Mexico to work like the United States or to work like Canada or to work like the UK or to work. It doesn't work. You're in a different country. Sure, certain things are the same. Just like I talked about last week, I talked about the cell phone thing, and one of the issues is customer service just isn't the same as it is back where I live. Maybe if I went to Best Buy and started yelling and screaming at the sales associate or the manager, maybe I'm going to get what I want. Maybe Best Buy is customer first, but if you Best Buy's not here anymore. They used to be, but they moved out of Mexico. But if I go to a Best Buy here or a Costco, Costco's pretty good about their policies, a return policy, but I go to return something, maybe I'm not going to get the same reaction, okay, that I get maybe in the United States. Maybe if I start yelling over here and I start being offensive, it's going to trigger the people that talk back. And usually in Canada, Mexico, and all of that stuff, usually you'll get, sir, quit yelling at me, sir, very respectful. Here in Mexico, you'll get the same thing, but I've seen instances where it gets to the point the manager says, you're just a stupid American, entitled, and get out of my store, okay? Because that person was treating them to the point, and they come back on the Facebook group and say, oh my God, they called me a stupid American. That's so rude. Well, yeah, because things don't work here in Mexico the same they do as maybe back home. So you need to build a support system so that you can learn those things. You can learn to be more patient, maybe. Those are very important things. And as far as long-term care, there's really not any kind of long-term care insurance like I think in the United States you can pay for a policy and then eventually go off to your place, okay, that you want to eventually go and spend your last days. But there really isn't that here, okay? Also, you need to understand that medical insurance, if you qualify for Mexico medical insurance, that it does go up with age, okay? These are all factors that you need to consider, okay? So I think with a little bit of planning, you can really do it. It's not something that, but you're going to have to rely. You're going to have to build trust relationships with people here. And I think that it is doable. Okay. Um, and now on the question of long term care, for example, and I've had this question asked from me a lot. Um, if you can hold on just one second, let me just get a drink of water real quick. What do I do if I need long term care? Well, I'm going to give you my personal experience. And with my in laws, we have two, a husband and wife, my father in law and my mother in law. In Monterrey, Mexico, we're looking at a facility. It's an apartment facility. It's independent. You can be independent or they have therapy. I mean, it's everything from independent to dependent in a sense. It depends just how far on you are as far as your condition. Uh, but it's a small apartment. It's a big apartment building. Basically, it's a high rise apartment building. Uh, Breakfast, lunch, and dinner included, and that's all included. Now the medications, they give you medications. They have an on-call doctor. They have on-call nurses. They have activities every day. Um, the only thing with the medications is you have to pay out of pocket. Okay, or you supply the medications, or they will bill you for the medications. They'll buy them and bill you. The price per month is 70,000 pesos. Excuse me. So you're looking at, well, if you go, the exchange rate has gone down to 19 to 1, but if you go to 20 to 1, 20, 40, 60 plus 70, you're looking at approximately $3,500 a month on just base expenses. Um, Now, here in San Miguel de Allende, we looked into it for a couple. It's at a hacienda style. It's basically an old hacienda that used to be that has hot water springs, the aguas thermales, which is hot water springs, and they was a spa at one time, and then it turned into like a where you could stay days or what. It had a bunch of rooms. That place, and they actually specialize in cognitive care with people with dementia and all of that stuff. That place was for two people, 40,000. You share your room, you with your spouse. That's 40,000 pesos a month. Okay. So there is a difference depending on what city. I don't know what Ajijic. Ajijic has a lot of assisted living places. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, even here in San Miguel, they're building a couple of other assisted, and also one of our neighbors is her sister in law is the Secretary of Health here in San Miguel, and actually, her sister-in-law and a bunch of other people are trying to put together even a hospice care here. How affordable that'll be, I don't know. And granted, remember, these are this year's prices. They're probably going to be going up. But just to give you an idea, $40,000 is around $2,000 a month. Okay. So that just gives you an idea. And of course, other expenses, just if they need to take you to the doctor, you have to pay for that. Yeah, all of that stuff. If you have insurance, then they cover you with the insurance or whatever. But the actual room, board, and food and care is the 40,000. Same thing in Monterrey. The 70,000 is room, board, and care, and that's for two people in one room. And I think it's 35,000. I think it's just or 60 something if it's just one person. So that gives you an idea what it'll cost if you need to go to an assisted living place. The other thing that there is an organization here, I haven't really looked into it, but we do have an individual living in my neighborhood who worked for NASA. Him and his wife moved to San Miguel. His daughter lives back home, and he has a full-time caretaker that belongs to a group a nonprofit organization that tries to keep people at home, per se. In other words, they care for you. Like your last year's, instead of going to an assisted living place, you stay at home. Hey, 1D Tree. And Lobo Solo, I'll get to your question in just a second if I can answer it. So that's an option too. Now, I don't know how this organization gets paid, how much they charge. I have heard of organizations here in Mexico that if you, for example, own a house and maybe your 401k and everything, you will it to the organization and the organization takes care of you. Well, they evaluate what you have. And if you have a decent amount of money or a decent nest egg, then you basically are giving up your nest egg to say, take care of me the rest of my days. And you stay in your house and they take care of you. I have even heard of expats or immigrants, if whatever you want to call yourself, expat at the beginning, an immigrant if you actually get your citizenship. Want to make that clear because I get so many people trying to give me the lecture that it's not expat, it's immigrants because of I don't know what all political BS. But you might want to, if you have enough resources, I have heard of people that also maybe they, I don't know, have a housekeeper that they, or they meet a family that starts taking care of them and they say, you know what, if you take care of me the rest of my life, I'm going to leave you everything. And actually that happens. Or sometimes the people take care of them or they work for you, like you have full-time help and the person doesn't have anybody to leave their stuff to. They leave it to their housekeeper or whoever, their caretaker or whoever it was that took care of them. So there are options here. It's a matter of building those relationships. You, David, you're in Niagara, Ontario. Welcome. So there are options, but the thing is you need to, like I said, find your tribe. And your tribe can be anything from other expats. You know, I also see this on Facebook groups, and they say, "Oh, I don't hang out with other expats. I only hang out with locals because I want to get into the culture." Well, that's great. I applaud you. But don't put someone else down if they don't. Don't put someone else down if they don't feel comfortable immersing into the culture right away. Is it important to immerse into the culture? Yes. Do you need to totally immerse into the culture? Well, you know what? I have foreigner friends, like I said, from all over the world, even the United States, okay, from Canada, all over the world. And so I don't limit myself and my tribe to just Americans or expats or locals. And locals, I have plenty of friends that are locals. Some of our best friends, as a matter of fact, I invite some of my other foreigner friends to come over to our parties with the local people that we're very good friends with, and they integrate into that environment. So it's very important to find that sense of community, and Mexico is very, very, Mexico is very, very. How would you say? As a matter of fact, let me just put in other people's words that move here. That there's a sense of community here, and you'll find that even in my neighborhood. We have a group chat in my neighborhood. You know, I talk to a lot of people from back home, and they say I don't even know my neighbors. I even look at my in-laws that live in Monterrey, Mexico, which is a big city. They don't even talk to their neighbors. They don't know their neighbors. Everybody here, actually, I'll give a funny little story. We went off on vacation and we had someone taking care of our little mini huskies. And one of them decided that she was going to go into one of the rooms that the door wasn't totally closed and hide. And the thing with her is she always, when we start looking for her, she stays real quiet because she thinks it's a game. She's hiding. And the person taking care of them called us frantic because he had gone out I think he had walked out. He thought maybe that our little mini husky escaped. And he called us frantic. I can't find, I'm looking everywhere in the house and I can't find her. And she was underneath the bed in one of the rooms, like I said. And actually, in one of the rooms, they didn't even think was possible that she would be in, but it was just because the door was not shut. And what did he do? He's a neighbor, and he started going out, and the neighbor's like, "What's wrong? I lost Paris. I lost Paris." And everybody in the neighborhood mobilized and went all over Cirandaro looking for our little mini husky. And I don't see that happening. And you know what? These are all from, I mean, actually, a majority of my neighborhood, with the exception of, actually, I have 2 Americans that live in my neighborhood. The rest of them are Mexicans that are either retired from Mexico City or that have weekend homes here or whatever, like vacation homes here. And most of them are from Mexico City. And they all went. As a matter of fact, that we even were joking around with one of the guys, is because he kept going around. Have you seen a little dog? Well, what does he look like? Black and white. What's his name? I don't remember. But he was interrogating everybody. Okay, that way he came across, and all the way to the golf course. Needless to say, we found her. She was in the room, and by that time was on the bed, all happy. And he opened the door to the room because we had told him, you know what, open all the rooms again, because what happens is she pushes the door and gets in, and then she can't get out. But then when you start calling her, and the more frantic you are, the more she thinks it's a game. So that's the example of community here that I don't have back home. Yeah, some neighborhoods that I lived in were a little bit more communal than others, but that is a perfect example of how you can build community. Another perfect example, my mother-in-law, when she had her stroke, the person that takes care of the guy from NASA, she happens to be a nurse. She also happens to be her sister-in-law is the Secretary of Health. She happens to be very integrated into the healthcare community. We had no idea. We needed somebody like a caretaker to help us because of that professional that could help us take care of her until we could get her to Monterrey. No problem. I'm going to find you somebody. And they did. And what you can pay for in-home care too. It's expensive. But for example, in Monterrey, it's more inexpensive here. We're paying 12 hours a day from a contract company Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sunday, we take care of it. And Monday through Friday, just for a nurse or whatever, it's almost 7,000 pesos a week. So you can see that it adds up. It's probably less, more like 5 or 4 or 3 here. But you're looking at that kind of money for if you want in-home care. If you want 24-hour care, it's going to cost you double. It's probably going to cost you what it would to go to a home or assisted living place. So that's something that you really need to work on when you get here. Don't isolate yourself. Don't think because you don't speak the language, I can't, when I get together with my friend, as a matter of fact, when I talk about bringing my foreigner friends, I have a couple of foreigner friends. They're not from the United States, but they come to our parties when we hang out with our Mexican friends. And our Mexican friends do speak English, but very broken English. And they speak English, but they don't speak Spanish. They understand a little bit and everybody communicates. I mean, no one's going to put you down because you don't speak the language. I think the people putting each other down more about not speaking the language are other expats, and basically go and they yell at people on the Facebook, you should learn the language. I get it. There are some people that it's slower. I think my attitude is you should learn the language. First, it's great because if you're getting older, the best exercise for your brain is learning a new language. Second, you're not going to learn it right away. even if it takes you years to learn, and maybe you might have broken Spanish 20 years later, but it doesn't matter. It's for your own good. I mean, not even for the other people that you're speaking to. It's for your own good. But if you don't speak Spanish and you don't, if you can find your tribe and you can find that support system, or you can find that middle ground where you can communicate, as long as you're not putting someone down because they don't speak English, as long as you're trying, you're going to be fine. I speak English all the time here, of course, on my YouTube channel, but I speak English to my friends all the time. And I speak Spanish. I go back and forth depending on where I'm at. So you need to understand that that's something that's very important, is finding your own tribe. That's going to be your solution for the person that asked me that question, is finding your tribe, building relationships, building those relationships. You might not have family back home. You might be coming by yourself, but I guess I might put it this way. Find a family here. Make your family here. One of the things my dad or mom always used to say, because I moved a lot in my job, one of the things my mom and dad used to say is, home is not back here with us. Home is where you make home. So if you make home here in Mexico and you make family here in Mexico, that's your family, not your family back home. Okay. No, don't get me wrong. You have your family back home. I've got my kids and everything else. But my wife and I, we're very into the fact that my kids need to live their life. All right. I had a lot of opportunities because my parents taught me the same thing. We can't rely on them, not because they're not going to step up to the plate. We can't rely on them because we want them to have the same successes as we had. We want them to have their life. We want them to have their marriage, their spouse, and all of those things that we had. Okay? So I'm not counting on my kids to come and take care of me. Yes, maybe they're going to step up to the plate and do something if something happens to one of us. I'm not saying they won't, but you really need to plan in a way that you know that no one's going to be there for you. If you plan that way, if someone's there for you, that's great. Or, like I said, we're finding alternatives. So that's kind of the answer to your question for the person that asked the question. And you can trust me, you can find your own tribe amongst local people, amongst the community. There's all sorts of communities here. There's from all over the world, all different walks of life, everything from professionals. As a matter of fact, there's even LGBTQ plus communities everywhere. In Lajijic, here, those communities, and you know what? Some of these communities, like the LGBTQ plus, they're integrated with the Mexican LGBTQ plus communities here. So there's a lot of opportunity to build your family here, to build your home here. So I'm going to leave everybody with that. I think that's my answer to that. And I'm going to get back to a couple of questions. But I hope that helps for the person that brought that up. And I thought it was something that instead of writing back or saying, hey, because a lot of these questions that I get, I say, you know what, I think it's a little bit more complex. I need to explain it to you. So let's set up a free consultation, and I do my free consultations. But this I thought was kind of an important subject to bring up because there are a lot of people in that position, especially in Ajijic. As a matter of fact, I've even gotten calls from people to help that when there's been a crisis. There was a guy that was traveling back to Ajijic, got in a car accident, didn't have anybody to call. He called his friends back in Ajijic. His friends back in Ajijic mobilized. They all mobilized, and they were able to get him back home safely. I mean, literally, he was stranded on the side of the road. His truck totaled. The National Guard took him to a hotel. He didn't even know where he was. Okay. and we were able to between. Well, I wasn't the one that made the arrangements, but I gave suggestions and contacts. They called those contacts. They said to driver, they were able to figure out where he was, and they were able to go pick him up. But none of those people were his immediate family. None of those people were, I mean, literally, I didn't know the guy. They called me. All of the people that banded together was the local community. Okay. And it was a local community of Americans. It wasn't the local community of local Mexicans. But some of the people that helped out were locals. So it's a greeting. Hey, Bruno from Massachusetts, welcome. It's a mix of finding your own tribe in every single way. It's not just one thing or another. We get very literal in the United States. As a matter of fact, I see this in politics. I don't discuss politics, but we have this polarization of you're either right or you're left. And if you're right and somebody's left, they're the devil. If you're left and somebody else is right, they're the devil. And everybody ends up the devil. I don't know. I don't get it. Instead of people having a difference of opinion, that's all it is. So just be aware that you can build that community here. And I see so much of, no, this is the way it is. No, this, or poor people that ask questions and get berated on Facebook. And there's no reason for that. There is no reason for that. We're all here on an adventure, and it's important that we all get together and stick together, period. Whether it's, I hear this from the expats saying, oh, I only hang out with expats because because I just don't trust Mexicans or whatever. You get the other one. Oh, I'm not an expat. I'm an immigrant. Then you get the other ones. I only hang out with locals. I don't hang out with expats. They're all Karens. There's no reason to generalize, to stereotype anybody from Mexico, to stereotype any of your people from your own country, or to stereotype anybody from any other country. As a matter of fact, that's what's going on in the United States right now. And it's not nice. So let's see right here. I'm going to get to questions. I'm going to get to your questions today. I think I kind of, unless you have some more questions about long-term care, support, health insurance, that type of thing, especially when you get older, go ahead and type them up here. Also, I welcome, like I took this topic, I welcome you to email me at info. The email address is info@retiredlifeinmexiconobull.com. info@retiredlifeinmexiconobull.com. I don't get back to people right away. As a matter of fact, the person that asked this question could probably tell you I actually didn't get back to that person till the weekend. Because I am busy, but I will try to get back to you, like I said, I'll just make it a topic. And if it's not a topic, I'll even offer you a free consultation. If it's something that I need to explain to you or too personal, I can do that too. So if you have anything, just let me know. Let me see. Lobo Solo's asking, an important question. I had an ATA brought over, but in my Hispanic's name, we paid fees at the border, $1,500. Then they say now, since February 20, it cannot get plates. Actually, Lobo, you have to import it. I don't know if the $1,500 was the import fees or what it is exactly that you paid. But that's something, I don't know how you brought it in. That's the only problem that I have with answering your question. Let me get a drink of water real quick. The other thing is, you asked me a question on a subject that I'm not very well aware of on importing or even tips. on RVs and ATVs and trailers and everything else. Um, Now, and I don't know why are they telling you you can't get plates if you actually imported it. If you have all the import paperwork, why are they saying that you can't get plates? That's maybe it might make sense or maybe it might not make sense. If you could give me that, maybe I'll be able to the uh, be able to address that. And then let me see what, because of the issue with Trump tariffs, this has been going on since November 2020, even though it has a permit paper. Have you heard anything? I haven't heard anything. Now, that's the thing. The permit paper, you have a permit. I don't know if that's a temporary plate or a permit to bring the ATV in, but the permit is a lot different than importing the vehicle in. That might be what your issue is. Um, that's the best I can do. um, I without more details, I probably couldn't answer your question totally. So, Stephanie was saying, I agree with you. I'm trying to learn Spanish, but I'm terrible. All of our neighbors are Mexican and speak no English. They're so kind and patient with me. Yeah, Stephanie. And you know what? I experienced this. I speak Spanish. So when I come here, and it's broken Spanish, don't get me wrong. I'm what they would say here, a pocho. I'm a Mexican American. Well, I'm actually half Puerto Rican, but I'm a Mexican American if you want to get technical. I'm half Puerto Rican, half Mexican on my dad's side. But I grew up in a Spanish speaking household, but I grew up in the United States. A lot of times the Spanish isn't proper, I actually didn't speak a lot of Spanish in the home until I spoke more Spanish in the 30 years that I worked than the 18 years I was growing up. Okay. So I know Spanish and I can communicate, and sometimes we have a laugh because I say the wrong thing, or the words just don't come out of my mouth, or I make up a word sometimes. But one thing that I did learn is I went to Brazil. When I got assigned to Brazil, they speak Portuguese there. And anybody that knows anything about Portuguese, everybody will tell you, oh, well, Portuguese is a lot like Spanish. Yes, it is a lot like Spanish, and I can understand, just like Italian. I can understand when someone's speaking Italian, more or less what they're saying. It's a Latin language. But to speak it is a totally different thing. And then not only to speak it, if you go in with no other language, or you go in with like French or something else that has no Latin background, you will actually learn Portuguese faster than someone that actually speaks Spanish. And that's a very big misconception, because people say, well, if you speak Spanish, you already have half of it down. But the problem is when you speak Spanish, you confuse the Portuguese with the Spanish. I used to speak what they called Portuñol, okay, in Brazil. When they say, oh, you speak Portuñol, because I was mixing Spanish words in there. But one of the things that I found as a diplomat, and this is with high-level people up to the Supreme Court in Brazil, when I had meetings with them, the directors of the federal police, the equivalent of the director of the FBI, I would speak in Portuguese, and very broken Portuguese, and then, of course, my Portuñol. And they would even say, if you want to speak in English, I can't. Because at that level, most of those people speak English. They speak Spanish because they're in Latin America. So they deal with, and actually when you have higher education in Brazil, you have to learn Spanish and English. Well, actually one or the other, at the time when I went there. But so they would say, oh, we'll speak Spanish. Oh, we'll speak, and I would like, no, we'll speak Portuguese. I have an interpreter here, and just excuse me if I make a fool out of myself. And you know what? That was the best diplomatic move I ever made. I made more diplomatic points with my counterparts trying to speak Portuguese than I did offering them money, offering them stuff, offering them whatever, cooperation on investigations. Something as simple as trying to speak a couple of words of Portuguese took me 1,000 miles with these guys. And it's the same thing here in Mexico. You'll find Latin America is so much like that. So, oh, okay. You import fees. Okay, I didn't know it was that. Did you get a customs broker to do it? Because thank you, Lobo. I'm sorry I couldn't answer it totally. Um, I don't know. I guess you said that maybe it didn't pass inspection, so maybe that was it. But if you paid import fees, you should be able to get a tag. You should be able to get a tag. And actually, Lobo, thanks for dropping in. It's always great to see you, man. It really is. I know I haven't seen you in a while, but it's always great to see you. Uh, Let me see here. Oh, you said Portuguese. They don't pronounce half the letters on their words. Yeah, well, actually, Puerto Ricans do that too. Also, the ch, the th, all it makes a lot different sounds. Hey, Denise, how's it going? Great to see you. So yeah, speaking Portuguese and like I said, I spoke what they call Portuñol because I always ended up mixing my Spanish, and it also is a confusion on the brain. Trust me, when something wants to come out in Portuguese, and it just comes out in Spanish. Um, and the only thing that I really had to worry about, there are certain words in Spanish that are kind of bad words in Portuguese. So I had to be able to say, oh, don't use those words. I can tell you some really funny stories about how I said something and it took a totally different meaning in Portuguese. and, but that's one of those things, like I said, and it all comes down to adjusting to the culture. Like I tell everybody, you need to adjust to the culture. You need to adjust to how things work here. It's a totally different culture. And I guarantee you, if you adjust, the biggest problem we have with people moving here, people get very, very motivated to move here for whatever reasons. I'm going to save a lot of money. I'm going to live a lot better life here, and all of that stuff. But at the same time, a lot of those same people, they come here very excited, but they end up leaving. They end up leaving because they're frustrated. They end up leaving because they're all alone here. Many people have to leave their families. Many people don't realize how attached they are to their family back home until they get here and their family's no longer 3 blocks away, or maybe even an hour away or 3 hours away. So that's something that you need to look at. But at the same time, you adjust. I'm 1,000 or 2,000 miles away from my kids. I adjust. I see them once a year. Um, but I mean, and it may sound bad in context, but they're living their lives. I'm living my life, and I have to accept that they're not down the street, or they're not in the next town over, or 4 hours over. That's what I have to accept. And how do I accept that? By building a life here. And that's what you really need to do. I have a lot of friends here in San Miguel. I have one pair of friends that they go to every single live music event. They love music. They go to every single bar. They go out. I guess the music starts at 6. They go out, have fun till 10. They're back home by 10 o'clock. They live downtown. They walk everywhere that they need to go, and they love it. They're making that life. And actually, the husband loves mezcal. He even went down to Oaxaca, and they went and got a bunch of mezcal. He even made his own brand of mezcal. He contracted some people from Oaxaca. He bought it in bulk, and he bottled his own mezcal. Those are the things that, if you start doing hobbies like that, you start making a life. And then not only that, but when they go out to live music events, they go out with different couples, different people, or there's a whole circuit of people that go to these live music events, and they see each other, they hang out. They have a life. They've built a support system. That's what's very important. Mary Lightfoot, how about medical insurance if you have pre-existing conditions? Mary, I've discussed this a lot of times. Um, uh, Here's the thing with medical insurance. It's not like the U.S. Well, the U.S. it used to kind of be this way, but now with Obamacare, I don't know what's ever going to happen to Obamacare, but let's say it still exists. It still does, and so you can't deny people for pre-existing conditions. I'll just give my personal situation, and I'll tell you what the answer to that question is. My personal situation is I had cancer, and I had when I applied for my insurance. My wife applied for the insurance, and she didn't have any pre-existing conditions. But what she did, when we did get covered, first of all, I had to wait a year after my treatment to make sure I was still healthy. Then I had to prove to the insurance company that I was okay. The second is I was covered. Now, I was lucky enough to get coverage. How they did it, I don't know, but I got coverage with a pre-existing condition of cancer. But here's the catch. I cannot be covered for cancer. I can be covered for all sorts of other things. Now, I also, Mary, I've told everybody here I carry federal employee benefit plan insurance, Aetna from the United States. I use most of it. I use most of my procedures. I use the U.S. insurance because they reimburse me a lot better. Because the way it works here is you have like a deductible. I have a deductible of 80,000 pesos, which is about $4,000, a little bit more now with the exchange rate, but $4,000. For example, I get a heart attack, I have to pay $4,000 up front, plus whatever is not covered by the insurance at the hospital. Okay. Once I pay that $4,000, I have it for that condition. So in other words, I don't need to meet a deductible after the first time I go in for a heart attack. If I have another heart attack, but you do have limits on how much they'll cover, like a lifetime limit. So I can get covered for a heart attack, but I won't be covered for cancer. Okay. But I still have a U.S. insurance where I get, now it also depends on how serious your pre-existing condition. Literally, something as little as high cholesterol can be a pre-existing condition that will disqualify you from medical insurance. Now, if it's something like high cholesterol, most of the time, what they will do is insure you, but you'll be a high risk and you'll have to pay more of a premium. Okay. That's what's very important to remember. The other thing about Mexican insurance is there's age limits. If you don't get it, like for example, some of them are up to 60. I don't remember what it was, but for me, it's like 60. My insurance policy is 62 or 65. After that, I cannot get onto that insurance. Now, if I already have the insurance, I can continue getting the insurance. So you have to get on before a certain age. There's age limits also. Now, if you're a high risk, you pay more. Or what they can do on some insurances is if you have that pre-existing condition, they won't cover it. But you can get covered for all the other stuff. And also the other thing is your insurance premiums increase. And actually it gets kind of, how would you say, it starts getting really bad when the older you get. It's more of an exponential growth or an exponential thing. So when you're at your 70s or 80s, you're paying a good $1,000 a month, or literally, not 1,000, but like almost $1,000 a month. Yeah, probably about $1,000 a month for insurance. So when might start at $500 a month or $300 a month, but it will go up. The other thing too, Mary, is there's a lot of expat, what they call expat insurance. There's also people, what they'll do is medical evac insurance. So if something happens, they just get stabilized and evac back home, especially people that have Medicare and Medicaid. That's what they do. They pay for a medevac insurance. And then for normal, and then here's the other thing too. I use my U.S. insurance because it covers doctor's visits. insurance here doesn't cover your doctor's visit. You pay for the doctor's visit, unless you had a heart attack and you need to see every time you see the doctor. You've already paid the deductible, then you can actually get some of that covered. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. 1 second here. Okay, any other questions? I think and actually I'm at 1 hour here, the closest I've gotten to 1 hour. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. The answer to this question was pretty simple, but like I said, I think the biggest importance before I go is the building of relationships, and somebody that you can trust, to take care of your affairs if something happens to you. And that could be, like I said, somebody that becomes a family member in a sense, to you, or somebody that maybe is part of a support community. There's a lot of support groups also here for expats that get along. That, as a matter of fact, even here in San Miguel, there's a couple of newcomers groups where they all have lunch or breakfast or whatever to discuss just getting here. When we first got here to San Miguel many years ago, we were in a newcomers group, and we met a lot of friends. And we still have one pair of friends from that original group that we still talk to and hang out with to this day. So that's probably the biggest thing. And I have a good little group. Didn't reach too much. We had a little less than 20 in the room today, and usually we have 30 or 40. But like I always say, the smaller the better. And also, I do know during the week is a little bit harder for some of you. The only problem is for the next couple of weeks, or until I can get my Sundays free, we're going to have to do it during the week. So it'll probably be Mondays or Tuesdays. Unfortunately, next Monday, I can't do it on Monday because my little one has an appointment at the vet, and one of my little ones. And it's right around the time. Actually, we usually have her appointments in the morning, but for whatever reason, they can only fit us in the evening. So I'm not going to be able to do it, but we'll do it Tuesday. I'll also stress again, if you have any other questions or anything that you think would be a good topic or you really want to talk about, just let me know. Email me, and we can cover it here, just like I did tonight. So we'll see you later, and thank you guys as always, for supporting the channel. And thank you guys for being here. We have a great community, and as I always say before I leave, stay safe, and most importantly, stay informed.